Hi, I'm Malika Bilal, filling in for Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, thousands of Spaniards are taking on mortgage lenders, banks, and Wall Street. Our digital producer, Omar Badar, is looking out for all of your feedback online, live feedback, that is. Now, of course, there are always hashtags popping up. Every week, it seems to be around evictions in Spain.
Indeed, lots of hashtags. And the latest one that's blowing up is Charo Segueda. This is in reference to the family that was just evicted on Monday. You have this tweet from 15MBCN saying, "Everyday life in Spain, a family with 2 children being evicted in Madrid." Scroll down, look at the photo. This is police surrounding the house. And we have this tweet also from Malaga saying, "Police sieges, cuts electricity and water supply to force the eviction of parents with 2 children in Spain." Malika, get this, there are more than 10,000 uses of this hashtag over just the past 3 days. So it's obviously a very active story on social media. Of course, for those of you at home, you need to tweet us using the hashtag that you see on your screen right now, AJStream, and we'll get to those tweets during the show.
And remember to keep your story ideas coming. We're always looking out for what's trending in your part of the world. So here's some of the hashtags that are currently catching our eye. The economic crisis in Spain has left millions of homes empty. Banks are eager to get defaulted mortgages off their books, and real estate prices are 40% below their 2007 values. This has provided investment opportunities for many, including U.S. private equity firm Blackstone. It's gobbled up more than 40,000 homes in the last 2 years, foreclosures and former government rent-controlled housing. The result has been debt and eviction. Take a look at this from activists.
We fight for the right to housing.
The Spanish government
and the rescued Spanish banks
are selling our houses to you
with huge discounts.
Discounts that were denied to us.
And now you
are raising the prices,
putting all of us in risk of eviction.
Maybe you think you are untouchable,
hiding in your nice building in Manhattan.
But you are not.
You don't know what we are capable of.
This is what we do
to people like you.
And this is what you do to people like us.
More than 330,000 people were evicted across Spain between 2008 and 2013. The country's unemployment rate remains high at 25%. On today's program, what impact is the sale of Spanish housing to U.S. firms having on the country? And how are Spaniards fighting for a roof over their heads? Well, joining us now from Barcelona, Santi Mas de Xaxas is an activist with Plataforma de Afectados por la Hipoteca, or PA, an anti-eviction platform. In New York, Oriol Valles Codina is an activist with Maria Granata, a group of Spanish immigrants fighting the economic crisis from abroad. Also in Barcelona, Michelle Ducher is a Spanish citizen who is in default over her housing loan. And from Chicago, Sebastian Gay is a real estate economist and lecturer at the University of Chicago. Now, the stream reached out to Blackstone and invited them to participate in today's program. They declined to appear on the show or send us a written statement. So, Michelle, let's begin with you. You bought a home in 2007, and now you may be facing eviction. Tell us what happened to you.
Good evening. First of all, I want to apologize for my English. And my story is now I am 32 years old, single with no kids. When I was 25 in 2007, I bought a house with my ex-husband. We bought from Catalunya Caixa Bank. For the crisis, we lose our jobs and we stopped to pay the mortgage in 2013. The apartment of my mother is the guarantee of our mortgage. Now actually we are afraid every day for the papers to eviction arrive. We don't have any news from the bank. We know Catalunya Caixa sold all their mortgage to Blackstone, but they never told me this officially. With the Spanish law, the bank can evict us and take my home and my mother's homes too.
So where will you go if you're evicted? What will happen?
I don't know. If I evicted, probably I go with any family, but not for a long time. We don't know.
Right. Santi, how often do you hear stories like Michelle's?
Hi, Monica. Extremely often. In fact, Michelle is also one of a member of PA, of the Platform Against Evictions. And we have our welcome assembly where every Monday we meet and we welcome new cases of people that are just going through the same struggles than Michelle. And the thing is that this is not getting better. It's getting worse and worse, and we keep having more and more people coming to our assemblies and joining PA and the movement. So that's why we also keep growing as a movement.
So
sadly,
when they come to you, what do they tell you? What happens? Take us through that process. They say, I'm being evicted, then what? Okay.
Well, the first thing that I think is important for the viewers to know is a little bit about what is the PA. PA, we are a citizenship movement. We are a transversal, completely apolitical movement. We do not do any specific individual cases. So we are all meeting in an assembly. We don't do any subsidiarism. So what we do is we share our knowledge. We meet around, we make a round, and everybody comes with their special situation. Are other people that have been affected, that have been gone through the same process than they are going right now, that the ones that are telling the history, their advice on what they should be doing. So the first thing that people go through when they come to the PA is they feel that they are ashamed, they think they have done something wrong, they think they live above the possibilities. That's what you hear in the news. And so the first win of the PA is empower everybody that have gone through this process. So everybody that has been evicted or is in the risk of being evicted, they feel empowered because they are sharing their history. They realize that it's not their fault. It's the whole system that was built around it. And first they pushed them to buy a house, and now because they lost their job, they want to even keep the house. So this is I don't want to take all your time to talk about.
But that was a perfect explanation.
Yep.
Okay.
There are a lot of people online who are also upset about what is happening. We have here on Facebook, Dan Brown says, I hope Spain cancels all the debt and turns the properties over to the tenants. It is really sad reality that Wall Street behaves with moral bankruptcy, if not criminal abuse, in most of their actions. On that last suggestion, the criminal abuse part, Oriol, do you have a sense of whether there's anything technically illegal about what is happening with these firms buying up real estate throughout Spain and evicting people?
As far as I know, for example, in the U.S. case, they are violating the fair housing law, and because racial minorities are put to blame, people with low income and so on, and these are the most vulnerable segments, and it's these aggressive tactics of buying single-family rental homes that are pushing a lot of people in violation of the fair housing law. In the Spanish case, I'm not that sure because of austerity and the Troika dictate and so on. A lot of the legal regulations have been much more favorable, made for profit making and for companies like Blackstone investing in the U.S. In Spain.
Well, you mentioned these legal regulations, but what is it that inspired so many people to enter the housing market and to decide that they weren't going to rent? Is there a rental market there available for people, or is buying the only option?
I mean, the rental market in Spain is really low, and I mean, at the peak of the bubble, we had 91% of home ownership rate. It was one of the highest in the world, right? And what one has to understand, in order to understand the complexities of the housing market in Spain, is that it was made to prop up the political power of the elites. and they wanted to force like home ownership as a main way to have people being much more conservative, because having a home makes someone more conservative. So some of the reforms that they implemented for that matter was the regulation of the mortgage law in the early 90s. There was also, as Sebastian already mentioned, the regulation of the land law in 1998, that is the start of the housing bubble, and also financial deregulation anticipating the arrival of the euro. So all that created a very proper brew for a housing bubble to start up and kick on.
Right. Well, Sebastian, you're listening to that. You hear that. In a layperson's perspective, is this a case of a broken housing market, or is this a case of people buying homes that they couldn't afford?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that it's one of those things that we say that in economics, actually, bad regulation and bad laws imply like bad outcomes, and that's what it looks like. It looks like the main issue that happens in Spain is just the law is like very abusive towards people that don't have like means to buy a home. When you look at how mortgages are structured, if you cannot pay like your mortgage, not only do you lose your home, but you have to pay forever until you have reimbursed everything. So it's something that already wouldn't happen in the US, and the banks are saying in Spain that if they were not doing this, they would take a tremendous amount of risk. But really here in the United States, the mortgage market is working well, and everything is reflected in the interest rates. So it's really like Spaniards have to pay twice for having less flexibility with like their own money. So I think that's what breaks like the system. And after who buys the homes, I don't think it's the important point. I think it's a regulation issue more than anything else. Right. And so that's why I agree with what Santi said. It's like and oil. It's like it's all about those bad regulations that created a storm. Right. And we have the results now.
Right, and of course the result is that there are people living in this storm. Michelle, you're one of those. If you could go back and do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I can't buy a house. I still renting only.
So we have people online who are actually pushing back on the point Sebastian was making about whether it matters who basically buys the house after default happens. Take a look at this video comment here from Michael.
Hello, my name is Michael Donnelly, and this is my wife, Carmela Manzanet. We were illegally ejected, evicted, and forcibly removed from a home purchased by Blackstone back in 2013. We definitely believe that Blackstone should not be allowed to purchase any homes anywhere in the world. They are not truly a landlord. They are only out for greed, profiteering, and have taken advantage of the global financial crisis that has devastated communities throughout the world.
Santi, what is your take on this? Do you view certain entities as being sort of inherently exploitative and therefore should not really be allowed to buy homes?
Clearly. I mean, before answering and endorsing Michel, what Michael just said, which I really believe the same, I want to mention two things related to what Sebastian and Oriol said. In order for everybody to understand, is that the Spanish law, mortgage law, has been already declared illegal by the European Justice Court. Okay, so some aspect of this law, the government has been obliged to change it, and they have many other requests from Spanish judges that are asking to the European Supreme Court to rule over the Spanish actual law. The Spanish government don't want to change the law, and they only do it once the European Union is telling them that this is completely legal. This is one thing. The other thing is that we have to also remember, people not only lose their homes, but in Spain, they take their homes and they say, okay, now your house is only valued 60% of what we thought it was valued before, so now you have to pay me the other 40. So you are not only losing your house, you are sent to exclosure for the rest of your life, because any money you are going to make is going to have to be directly taken from your account and going to the bank to pay your loan.
So Santi, that debt then follows them around for the rest of their lives. Is this unique?
Of their life.
Is this unique?
It is quite unique in the rest of the world. I mean, you cannot even open a telephone account. You cannot even ask for a telephone. Or obviously, if you are trying to rent something somewhere, they're gonna say, no, you're still owning. You're in this blacklist, and I'm not gonna let you stay in this house. So this is the process that the people are putting on. This is extremely dramatic. I mean, and what Michael was saying in terms of Blackstone buying houses and. Yeah, the decision here that we have to decide is housing a commodity where people just can make money, speculate, get Wall Street rich people even richer, or is a right as human beings that we have to live in a reasonable place? And this is the Spanish law, Spanish government. It thinks, no, this is a community. If you want to make money out of it, just make as much as you can, because we will not care. We will protect and defend all these speculators.
Sebastian?
So Santi, I agree with a lot of things that you said, especially the part when you get in debt like forever once you lose your home, and that value, it's amazing that they discount the value and you still have to pay like the difference. So I want to compare that with a US system where you could declare bankruptcy and go in front of a judge, and then you lose your home and you lose the equity, but you don't get like that second punishment, which is happening in Spain, which is you have to pay like forever. It might be harder to get loans, and you might get loans at a higher interest rate, but you still manage to, like survive a little bit. And the Spanish system just doesn't make any sense from a perspective, even like from an economic perspective, because it's like doubling down on people's homes.
And that's why vulture funds are coming to Spain. They know the law protects them. They know they are going to have the better conditions as possible. The government is giving them all these houses that were for, because you also have to know that Spanish banks have been bailed out with 60,000 millions of euros. Okay, this money from our public.
And I definitely agree, but I just want to stop you. The only thing that I want to say is that Blackstone, and I have nothing like for them or against them, it's just like it would be someone else. So it's really the law that needs to be changed.
Right, and Sebastian, that raises a good point. If it's not Blackstone, it would be someone else, and there are other investment organizations doing the same thing. I want to read, though, a quote from a Blackstone spokesperson. This was told to the New York Daily News about what's happening in Spain. This is Peter Rose, who says, "It is simply untrue to say that we are driving up rents and seeking to evict residents. We have an extensive series of programs to work with tenants to keep them in their apartments, and so far, only 11 tenants have been asked to leave out of more than 5,000 managed, and only then after a lengthy period of negotiation." So as I'm reading this, and this is from February, I see Santi smiling. You don't look like you believe that.
No, I mean, we don't have anything better to do. Mr. Blackstone, we decide to, hey, why don't we go occupy our banks and defend our houses? Because at the end, it's only 11 people, and you are such a nice guy that you are not doing anything all those. And we do not have anything better. So yeah, I'm sure that it's exactly what you are saying. I cannot tell you the other history of the other part of the story, which is, it is true that they do not own yet officially the loan, the mortgages. They have reached an agreement that will be implemented in April. And what they are doing right now is sending a new contract to the tenants, saying, hey, if you're going to stay between 3 months, if you pay between 300 and 600 euros, you can stay in your homes. But I don't know what will happen when Mr. Blackstone comes, and all this money that you have given me, that's welcome. And on the other hand, I forbidden you from protesting. If you protest against the bank, or if you do any kind of public protest, then you lose you go against what you have signed on the contract. So this is what Blackstone does, is what Michael said on the video. You guys in the US know way better Blackstone's tactics. We are just learning that here, but we want to stop them before they get here. That's why we built, and we are in this with this action right now.
Santi, you raised the issue of whether housing is basically viewed as a right or a commodity. We have some thoughts on this online. The Northerner here tweeted in saying, yes, it is a right. That's the role of government to provide social welfare and infrastructure. Housing is a necessity, and the government should step in. On the other hand, we have this comment here on Facebook. Samuel commented saying that these private firms buy these houses to speculate with them, as different governments, national and regional, are in need of new money. Oriol, from your perspective, can this really be dealt with without addressing also the fact that these governments are in need of that new investment and money?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best way to picture this is a vicious circle. I mean, Sebastian was very right at pointing out that the problem is regulation, but who makes these regulations, right? You have all the political parties have been extensively bribed and corrupted by private companies. In the case of Spain, I mean, we have the Barcelona scandal that is for Partido Popular, the current ruling party. You have construction companies giving a lot of money in a sustained way, untaxed money, in order to fund like their political demands, right? You also have the banks that were also benefiting from the advantageous legal regulation that basically gave a lot of credits and loans to the political parties in order to keep on passing this good and profitable regulation for them. And then there's also the revolving door mechanism that they integrated former politicians in their boards, in their executive boards. So this generates a really bad, vicious circle that is really difficult to break in. Right now, the only political organization that is really trying to break that vicious circle is the PA, the anti-eviction movement. I mean, it's really targeting and a very important intervention.
And Oreo, I think that says a lot about how people are feeling and what they feel are their options to doing something about this. So I actually want to take a look at what some are doing, and there are people that are squatting. So take a look at this clip. It's from a film called Si Se Puede. It's produced by Commando Video, and it's the story of Marcela, an evictee trying to find a place to live.
Nos decían que esto les daba un poco de corte, que por ahí yo podía dejar de pagar. Y me dice, es que tú no cobras lo suficiente como para suponer que tú puedas pagar un alquiler social. Y yo le digo, ¿cómo? Y me dice, no, es que mínimo tienes que cobrar 450 euros. Y yo le digo, pero a ver, si son, por eso se llaman de emergencia, le digo, porque yo no tengo. Sabemos o comprendemos hasta qué punto venimos con historias pasadas, pero después de todo somos unas personas normales que vivimos, obviamente que con una etiqueta que es somos ocupas, pero vivimos en una casa, es lo normal, somos una vecindad normal y corriente.
Sante, she says we're squatting, but at least we have a house. So how are people taking back their voice? How are they dealing with this? How are they fighting back?
Commando Video is also a part of the PA, and as well as Marcela and Michelle. So that's what we do. If at the end we cannot negotiate with the bank, and at the end people that are at the PA gets evicted, what we do is we recover empty buildings from the banks, and we put those families, at least they have a place to live. Right now we have 20 buildings in Spain, and through those buildings they have gone more than 1,200 people they have spent there. So this is the last situation. First we negotiate with the bank, then we negotiate with the administration to guarantee a place for this family to stay. But if it's not possible, that's what we do. We go and we regain the houses that were paid, because remember again, those banks were bailed out with our tax monies. So we believe those empty buildings, which are millions of empty buildings in Spain right now, and right now we at the same time, you mentioned that there were 360,000 evictions.
Right.
You mentioned people. No, there were evictions. So add this, multiply this by 4, because there were 360,000 families that were on the streets, and were put on the streets, and then right now the whole system is not offering any solution.
The magnitude of that really is overwhelming. So we're going to get into more of that and some more of those personal stories in our post show. So stay with us. The post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. Remember, you can follow along on our Stream app. Now on the next show, what if Superman was played by a black person or James Bond an Asian? We'll find out why Hollywood favors white actors in starring roles. And until then, we'll see you online. Welcome back. We're discussing the housing crisis in Spain. So let's get right back to that discussion. I pulled up on my screen here. This is from the Spanish Constitution, Article 47. It reads, all Spaniards have the right to enjoy decent and adequate housing. Authorities shall promote the necessary conditions and establish appropriate standards in order to give effect to this right, regulating land use in accordance with the general interest in order to prevent speculation. So, Sebastian, what responsibility do governments have to evictees or to ensure that there is adequate housing? What does adequate housing really mean?
That was about to be like my question. What does it even mean? You know, it's just it depends on the government, but at least trying to find an adequate place for people to live should be a minimum. But that, you know, we're far away from economics, and we're more about public policy and regulation, which is like you need to find somewhere where someone that's been evicted because they cannot afford their home doesn't have, you know, to live on the street. They need to just find a home that would be more affordable for them, or a rental place that would be affordable for them. So that's where I think there's that disconnect between those institutions that want to make a profit, and what they do, as was said before, is legal, and we might object to it, right? But still is legal, but the government doesn't do that bridge that they're supposed to do, which is provide like that particular service.
So, speaking of governments providing services, Eva mentioned something that I was not familiar with. She tweeted in saying those permanent empty houses belonging to banks and financial institutions should be made available for social housing. She goes on to say that Spanish courts have already ruled in favor of this in several cases, but it has not become a common practice. Oriol, are you familiar with this happening before? And if so, why isn't it more common?
The main problem here is that judges that had to rule if the eviction was going against the constitution or the mortgage regulation and so on, basically were bureaucrats stamping an approval for that to happen. They didn't have any kind of room for maneuver to sanction that or say, hey, this is a problem, this is creating a lot of social problems and so on. This is the reason, and Santi was very right, that I remember a judge recently went to the European Court of Human Rights in order to have a change of the regulation. I mean, and there was some abusive clauses that were pervasive in the mortgage contracts that were ruled illegal. That's a European ruling of 1992 that was completely circumvented by Spanish powers. So both private and public.
You know, Santi, you mentioned earlier in the show that this is something that is new to Spain, but you're looking at what's happening in the U.S. and don't want it to happen there. So I pulled up on my screen here. So these are some of the solidarity protests with people from around the world who say, this is happening here. We don't want it to continue happening. These are pictures of protests in Barcelona here, of course, where you are. There's also protests in San Francisco here in the U.S. And there, of course, were protests in New York outside of the headquarters of Blackstone, one of the investment companies. But you see these and you see the policies that these countries, some of them have. Is there a push for you and your organization to ensure that there's more subsidized housing, that there's more housing for low-income residents? What are you doing to make that happen?
Well, we know this is, I was said, is a new thing for us, having all these volunteer funds buying our mortgages. What is not new to us is the bank practices evicting people and the government not proposing or making or giving any solution. What we did, in fact, the protests that you were mentioned were part of our international protests, where we joined with people from Maria Granate and for San Francisco housing organizations to precisely demand to Blackstone to stop the buying of Catalunya Caixa. But we know this is an international fight. We know that wherever you are, I mean, you are in UK, Blackstone is in UK. If you're in Germany, Blackstone is in Germany. And it's not only Blackstone, it's all kind of vulture funds. So while we are just starting, and Blackstone and other hedge funds like them, they need to understand it. I mean, PA is a very unique organization. We are not just doing some sporadic protests. We are on the streets day after day, week after week. So this is, if they're coming to Spain, they're going to have to face us. And what we are going to do is ask other organizations in the rest of the world that are facing another type of Blackstone than to join us and to become this international fight just for a decent housing. So that's what we are gonna keep doing for Blackstone and other hedge funds like them. So that's our coming actions so we also need Al Jazeera and media like yourself that are sensible to human rights and to human basically defending human rights to keep giving coverage and voice to people and to actions and to Michelle and everybody that are fighting for their rights wherever they are. So hopefully you will also be hearing more from us and from our actions, because this is just the beginning.
Right.
So when we're asking people about what could solve the crisis there, we have people tweeting in. We have Ubuntu here who tweeted in saying, it's a free market-driven economy featuring willing buyers versus sellers. Let the market forces just prevail in Spain. Sebastian, so we're ending up in a situation where you have people who need homes, and then you have countless homes that are sitting there without people in them. If you just could simplify it a little bit and kind of put your finger on where the problem is exactly, why hasn't the free market basically solved this? Why hasn't this worked itself out?
That's, again, back to my first point. It's like you have bad regulation, so it prevents people from wanting to invest in homes or buildings so that they could then rent it to other people. So the system is so pervasive that actually it prevents people that would have enough money to have two homes to gamble and get a second home, because they're worried that the first home they might not even be able to reimburse the mortgage on it. So if you get more going into the rental market, if more rental market was available, because it seemed that it's one of the problems in Spain, then you might actually be able to have market forces make rents either go lower or offer more.
Sorry for stepping in, Sebastian, but something that I wanted to mention is that in historical terms, the market hadn't been freer as in the 90s and 2000s in Spain. I mean, you had a very important financial deregulation of the financial system, a very important deregulation of the land laws, important deregulation of the mortgage law. We had a very free market then going on, but of course we didn't have social housing. And the case of Michelle in this case is people that are not meant to go to the private market in order to get housing, because then they need mortgage to pay for it, that if they lose their jobs, because this is very important to note, it's not bad decisions of the people that are being evicted right now. They had all the available information at the moment was pointing out that the best rational decision was to buy a home. Low interest rates, tax breaks, all the media, all the economic experts were pointing out that the best thing was to buy houses. They did so, and they didn't expect that we would have 25% of unemployment. Who would have expected that? I think that nobody in Spain, except marginal voices, were pointing out that.
You know that the system is very abusive towards people that have a mortgage. You know that you could lose it all. It's not like you can just start from a clean slate right away, here in the US. If you default, then you default and you lose your home, but you're not tied up. So what I'm trying to say is just you know that borrowing for the banks ties you up, and it's true that you would not expect losing your job. But if I had to make a decision, even if I was told at the time that I needed to buy a home, I think I would have wanted to rent, because this is not a fair system. And that's what I'm saying. You need to change the law, because that's what is not working.
You need to change the law, Sebastian, and I think you need to change the politicians also, because it's not only about the law, and the law is being done by the politicians, but for example, our actual Minister of Economy is Mr. De Guindos. Mr. De Guindos was the president of Lehman Brothers in Europe, the subprimes. This is the person that right now is making and selling all our houses to all these hedge funds. So is the law, is the politicians, is the system, is this mafia that is ruling Spain right now. And that's why there's no other way. I mean, I understand the tweet. They're saying, oh yeah, let the market be the one that solves, but this is not, we are not in a healthy environment. This is just, everything has been organized to make the richer richer and the medium and low classes power. And that's the system and the law that we have.
And Santi,
I
of
agree,
course,
and that's why it's democracy, right? So you have, if you're not happy with your leaders, that's the way to go, right? You're just gonna vote someone else.
But
Oriel, I see Santi smiling at that. I know Sebastian also wants to jump in. This is a very heated part of the discussion. We're going to have to continue it online. I'll echo what Michelle said earlier because she's just dropped out on her connection. But she did say that if she could go back and do it all over again, she would not buy a house. So those words from Michelle Ducher. I'll end with community though because I know they're still talking about this subject.
Yep, we have here Usman, who's particularly upset at the fact that it's foreign firms that are buying these up, saying U.S. firms buying real estate in Spain and evicting tenants is like you going to Antarctica and evicting penguins is just sad. And then we have Latina Stop Desaucios here saying many families, including the Charo Sequeda, are now squatting in homes and their right to housing should be recognized and supported.
That's all the time we have left. I want to thank my guests, Santi Mas-Tichachas, Oriel Baez Codina, Michelle Ducher, and Sebastian Gay. Now, on the next show, what if Superman was played by a black person or James Bond an Asian? We'll find out why Hollywood favors white actors in starring roles. And until then, we'll see you online.